Well, the Battle of Bunker Hill is one of the seminal moments in American history.
Theoretically, we should have no issue in destroying it on the field.
Now the British Grenadiers are being beaten in the front by the Americans.
Fire!
That's it. It's been a feint. This whole British assault in the middle has just been a distraction.
Battle of the Bunker Hill is one of the seminal moments in American history, in our drive for independence, which wasn't embraced by all of the colonies at this point in the history. But the question after Lexington and Concord was the tactics used by the Americans were very much hit and run. It's what they learned in the French and Indian Wars. The question was, could they stand face to face against the might of the British Empire and stand and fight? And Bunker Hill answered that question to no doubt whatsoever. The British lost more casualties in this battle than they did in any other battle, the entire war. 8 years of war happened after Bunker Hill, and they lost more men here than anywhere else. And that just tells you about the determination, the person. It's a battle we did not win. We did not hold the ground, but it proved to the world, it proved to the men themselves that they were capable of standing up and facing tyranny in the eye and driving it off the continent eventually.
Our America 250 coverage continues now with a reenactment of the Battle of Bunker Hill, which was fought in Charlestown, Massachusetts, near Boston, in June 1775. The 2025 reenactment was held at Stage Fort Park in Gloucester, Massachusetts, about 35 miles northeast of Boston. More than 1,000 reenactors took part, and crowds were estimated at around 20,000.
Stage one, building the redoubt. That was ordered the day before, June 16th, by the Provincial Congress. They form up on Cambridge Common, about 1,000 men under Colonel Prescott. They march out along Charlestown Neck up onto Breed's Hill, and they build the redoubt. That's stage one. Stage two arrives about 4:30 in the morning, when the British Navy, which surrounded Charlestown, spied the American fortification up on top of the hill, and they begin firing. The HMS Lively is the one who kicks it off. The British soldiers then begin to embark in Boston on boats. They all have to be rowed over, all 4,000 of them, and they land in two places in Charlestown. They land on Morton's Point, and then they land near the town of Charlestown itself. And the battle shapes out, and Howe thought what he could do is, the hill is very far forward. A little further back, there were some American defenses along a rail fence manned by John Stark and his New Hampshire boys and Colonel Knowlton from Connecticut. And Howe thought he could go around those guys. And he was proven wrong. Very, very wrong. And the Grenadier and Light Infantry companies, the elite of the British Army, were badly beaten back from that defensive position at the fence. Part two and part three are very similar. The idea of going up the hill, Howe has his men firing as they're advancing on the redoubt, but that takes time, and there were fences and obstacles in the way that had to be climbed over, and the British troops, particularly the officers, are decimated in that particular attack. final attack, Howe just took all of his men, had them fix bayonets, and they just rushed up the hill and went up and over the top. The Americans, being low on ammunition, and many of them without bayonets, retreated out of the redoubt. The last man out being Dr. Joseph Warren, who was famously killed, and he's often referred to as Liberty's first martyr, and he's killed right there in the redoubt at the Battle of Bunker Hill.
Advance your! Advance your! Firelocks! NCOs, see to the inspection and safety of your men. Section, attention. NCOs, see to the safety and inspection of your men. Division, rest your posts.
Yep, that's you. What's the name?
Colonial, rear rank.
Lance Company. Rest your firelocks.
Rear rank, no, actually, yeah, rear rank, 3 pages.
Shoulder your firelocks. Secure your firelocks.
We can get further on flag down if we need to. Charged with cartridge. Powder, shot, and wad is poured down the barrel. Slightly, if you need to, break your rammer free, but prepare to grab the rammer by pinching with the thumb and the forefinger. Draw, rammers, done in 2 counts. First count, drawing halfway. Second count, grabbing. Spinning it out, using the ergonomics of your body to spin that rammer about, waiting for the order to ram down cartridge. Feeding that cartridge to the breech. After the cartridge is rammed, the rammer is turned into the piping almost the entirety of the way. Just like with priming, with this next motion, we're going to conduct the first motion, count a moment's worth of time, and then feet are corrected. Shoulder your firelock. 1, 2. We have successfully loaded a firelock. Prime in. Load. The only thing really different with the motion of priming and loading is you are going to, the order is given, throw the firelock. The gun is supposed to leave your hand, turning it about, grabbing at the wrist, and trigger guard facing outwards.
We're digging up a redoubt for ourselves and for protection. We're putting up some wood rail fencing to add for barriers and trying to just make sure we don't get flanked when we're getting ready for the battle. This has been building for weeks, if not months, and we knew this was going to be a real problem. The British were relentless in their idea of how they wanted to keep control of the area, and we knew that we couldn't withstand this type of treatment. So we wanted to make sure that the British knew, we wanted to show the British that we wanted to be independent. We didn't want to be under their thumb. So to show our strength, we gathered our militia together, and enough people had the spirit that yes, we agree, this is what we want to do. Don't want to be under their rule or being told what to do by these people all the time. I would have been just a civilian, a merchant. Most likely, I'm dressed more like a merchant would be, so I did light trade. So I depended on the shipping coming in and out of Boston Harbor. So that would have been my idea of what I was doing. The oppression that we're receiving from the events that took place back in 1773 from the Boston Tea Party is really making an impact on the on business here. The act of closing down Boston Harbor for commerce has really impacted everybody with regards to food, with regards to goods coming in from across from Europe and any place else. So we're starving. We have really no money to buy anything, so we're just bartering because we can't buy anything because there's no money. So we trade here and there with what we can.
Rearrange to the right about. Face.
Battalion! Order your fire. So for the first two assaults, we will march up the hill in company fronts. For the third assault, we will form column, the right wing and the left wing, and approach the redoubt and the rail fence from the right and left. And again, from the music down is the left wing. From the Marines down to the Grenadiers is the right wing. So I came from London in March of '75 along the Cerberus, the three-headed dog, along with my comrades General Burgoyne and General Clinton. And we were asked by the ministry to help General Gage, who they felt was not being aggressive enough to handle the situation here in Boston. Eventually, I was asked to take command of the British Army and continued with this battle here. I was very sympathetic to the people of Massachusetts. I thought that the ministry's approach to handling the colonies was very harsh and uncalled for. And I didn't think that the British troops, the Army, could really control things here and get the obedience that the ministry was looking for. Also, my brother George, my older brother, who was killed at Ticonderoga in '58, was beloved by the Massachusetts people, and they donated money to erect an obelisk in his name at Westminster Abbey. So, while my feelings changed once I got here, and my ambition sort of took the whole hell of me, thinking that I might be able to become commander-in-chief, since Gage was not very popular, I took that opportunity and came. We do not have enough men. When I looked out at this fortification last evening, I did not notice all of the men that were up there. They had entrenched themselves very well, and my fear is that our men, even though they're trained to march in line with bayonets fixed, I think they will be overwhelmed. Well, they're farmers and they're merchants. So theoretically, we should have no issue in destroying them on the field.
They were average, ordinary men. This is the idea of ordinary men doing an extraordinary thing. They were farmers, they were fishermen, they were carpenters and tradesmen, merchants and scholars. They really came from every walk of life. But militia duty was a requirement here in Massachusetts if you were between the ages of 16 and 60, and if you weren't a minister or a town official or a Harvard student, you had to serve in the militia. And so they were already getting training, and they just sort of upped the amount of training that the men were getting. So they were prepared from the standpoint of they understood their duty, particularly in the face of tyranny and military expeditions into their community. For the British soldiers, the story's a little more complicated. Of course, we have this vision that British soldiers are an unruly, uneducated, thug-like mob that the king just hires and then sends all over the world. But in reality, their story is very similar to the provincial cause. These are, many of them, young men who are forced by financial circumstances to go into the army to provide for themselves and their family. Some of them are older. The older men tend to be the non-commissioned officers, the corporals and sergeants, and they're there to do a job. And it's not just that job. They also come with other skills: shoemakers, carpenters, cabinet makers, and they're taking jobs in the community of Boston while at the same time serving the king. And that becomes a bit of a problem. They also, and this is the important part of the story, is that they also, because they're stationed in Boston, they begin to intermarry into Boston society as well. So famously, the Secretary of the Commonwealth is a man named Thomas Flucker. His youngest daughter, Lucy, marries Henry Knox, who goes on to become a famous American general. But her other two sisters all marry British officers. And that's another part of the story. The British are not just here as occupiers, but they are also neighbors and sometimes family.
At the time the Battle of Bunker Hill would have started, what did the soldier look like? Talk to us about uniforms. Talk to us about weapons. Yeah. Talk to us about comport, those kind of features.
So for the British Army, they're probably the easiest because their uniform is dependent very much on what type of soldier they were. So there's three kinds. There's light infantry, which is an elite part of the unit. There's the regular or hat company soldiers. That's our traditional image of the red coat. And then, of course, the grenadiers, who are the ones wearing the tall bearskin caps, who tend to be the biggest and strongest, the shock troops of the era. So they are, that's what you'd see if you were in Boston. And of course, the uniform depends on where they're from, what unit they belong to. So the facing colors are all different. If you're a musician, your coat colors are reversed. If you're a grenadier, you have an epaulette, whereas the hat companies don't. So, but typically, dull red coats for privates, bright red coats for officers. Officers wear a little gorget around the neck, which signifies that they are an officer. And that becomes important at the Battle of Bunker Hill because the officer corps is decimated at the Battle of Bunker Hill. And that's partly because they could pick them out from literally hundreds of yards away. For the provincial soldiers are wearing their everyday clothes. In some cases, they're wearing their very best clothes. We hear the stories of, for instance, Dr. Joseph Warren, who comes out here on this day in his very best silk suit. Not typically what you'd go to war in, but for some of the men, if it was going to be their last day, they wanted to meet God dressed in their best.
Oh, I see on the British left, closer to the crowd line, there's troops on the move now. Looks like they're heading into the open fields. If they can do a rushed assault straight up the middle, they can be on the Americans with their bayonets in a matter of seconds. They can't go running forward if they can't all stay together. It won't be effective to just have 2 or 3 men get to the top of the hill. They have to all get up there at once. They have to stop and reform the ranks now. They can't let one part of the battalion get ahead of the other. Oh no, the Americans are taking advantage of this. The British aren't able to effect a charge. The way to unseat the Americans is to rush on them, but they can't go fast enough on this uneven ground, this rugged ground with all these things in the way. They've had to stop now. Oh, wait, did they stop and attack? Or maybe it was only a feint this whole time. Maybe they're just trying to stay a little bit out of effective range here. They brought up another battalion to support them. Are they going to try a frontal assault on a fortified position? Oh, wait, there go the British light infantry way off by the shoreline. They've set off at a fast pace. Maybe this British in the middle, maybe this is just a feint. Now the British Grenadiers are being hit from the front by the Americans, and they're even getting random shots from behind from their own light infantry. And the main British column is stalled there too. They can't get up that steep slope under withering fire. They've had to stop. The British have fallen back, folks. They've taken a lot of casualties. Remember, they're professional soldiers. Their officers are rallying the men now. They're getting them to reform. They're forming up out of effective musket range. But it's been a pretty brutal assault so far. The light infantry are still trying to fire at long range, and they're even hitting some of their own men. Now they're retiring. The Americans are still firing. The British are out of range, but the Americans are still going through a lot of ammunition. Each of these men on the American side carry 20, 30 rounds of ammunition. The British have as many as 60. The officers on the British side have gotten control now. They're having an orderly retreat. They're regrouping. On the American side, the officers are trying to get control. There's still men firing, even though the British are well out of effective range. These young militia soldiers with limited training, it's hard to keep control of them now. The officers are trying to get them, conserve your ammunition. But they're enthusiastic now. They've seen that maybe they can win this battle. Maybe they can hold this hill.
Second platoon, rest your firelocks.
The British are pulling back to the shoreline. I have a feeling it's not over yet, though. They may be dispirited, but I don't think it's over.
March! March. Step! Step!
We represent the 1st New Hampshire Regiment. We're one of 3 original regiments that were created 250 years ago in May by the Exeter Provisional Congress in New Hampshire. And we were already down in the Cambridge and Medford area when we found out that we were actually part of a regiment. A lot of us marched from New Hampshire, towns all over, and we were just representing the towns of New Hampshire.
March!
And that we became the 1st and 3rd New Hampshire. The 2nd New Hampshire actually stayed in New Hampshire to protect the seacoast in case of British naval attacks. But this is just a beautiful day, beautiful weekend. I've been doing this, my wife and I have been doing this for 8 years. We love reenacting, And again, the 1st New Hampshire Regiment created 250 years ago last month, and actually was one of the last regiments ever to disband January 1st, 1784.
And in the broad sense, plug yourselves into the story of the Revolution, your role.
Yes, so as the 1st New Hampshire, the day after Lexington and Concord, there was a lot of alarm riders that came from that area up in New Hampshire and in Maine, and we all gathered. And now in the town that I live in Nottingham, New Hampshire, 60 men on April 20th, the day after Lexington and Concord, led by Henry Dearborn, captain of the 1st New Hampshire Regiment, marched down to Cambridge and Medford to meet up with Colonel John Stark. And at the time that the regulars came on to Charlestown, we were all amassed with John Stark. And because of his experience military-wise of the French and Indian War, he trained us, and we helped out, and on the left flank pushed the regulars not once but twice. And on the 3rd time, even though we were running out of ammo, we covered the retreat from Colonel Prescott up in the redoubt. So we were actually the 1st New Hampshire, and the 3rd New Hampshire actually were the last ones off of Bunker Hill before the British took the whole peninsula.
Notice in here, these are all the supplies that we would need to do a fire.
For cooking?
For cooking.
This is our Dutch oven.
Let's see if it's doing anything. Oh, that was good.
And that's where the apple pie is. Go ahead.
Do you have the hook? It's just starting to cook. It's only been on there for about 15 minutes at this point in time. So you put the coals underneath and you put the coals on top, and it makes an oven. We're going to do the same thing with the vegetables. I got the vegetable pot started, and they'll go on after the pie.
We can make a chicken stew, a turkey pot pie. I mean, yeah, anything.
You find in camp, you'll have some herbs that we found, and we would use whatever we could really find to make what we had to for dinner. This afternoon is potatoes and carrots, which we would be able to find in the area.
And like for breakfast, we do blueberry muffins, blueberry bread, cranberry bread, hard-boiled eggs, fried eggs, scrambled eggs, banana bread. Martha Washington, she's got a favorite banana bread recipe, and everybody loves it. Usually when the guys come back off the field, they're hot, they're sweaty, about ready to keel over, so we usually have ice water, cold water, and we put things on their heads and make sure we peel their clothes off, coats off, kind of cool them down fast. Tend to any of their cuts and wounds. They've got frisons, they've got sharp sparks, they have burns from the flintlocks. So we take care of that as well. Yes, we do all of the cooking and washing. Come on this way and we'll show you where we do our washing. Yeah. And this is where our bowls are. We'll heat the water on the fire. Obviously, you would get it from a river, a stream, a lake, and then we put it in here and we wash everything up. That's our wash station. And my husband, he's the sergeant, so he checks out the safety of all of the men, their ability to march, follow orders, work a musket, flintlock, cannon. Got a what, 6 pound?
cannon.
Yeah, 1st New Hampshire Regiment has a 6-pound. Hi. 6-pound cannon. Let's see, for the women, what else? Sewing,
I met
cleaning.
Husband's shirt, what he was going. Hand sewing. Hand sewing. Not the most beautiful. Definitely. Because the shirts will wear out, and they wear them. And wear them.
And wear them.
So that was what I did when the men were born today.
Is it tiny? No, it's not.
Well, I know it's not ours, so then we
In Kelly or Tura. I'd say use it if you need to use it. You're fine. I got some great bayonets. Yeah.
I'll see if I can even import that.
But I did a lot of small.
Oh.
But I love that shirt.
Tell me you're going to be famous.
I'll be on stage. I have one of capsules. I like it too much.
I know.
Because it's not under the lining, but
That's a crazy little camera. No. I did see it. What did you? I haven't got it yet. Okay.
I am one of the militiamen, one of the Massachusetts militiamen. Actually, just been adopted as the Continental Army a couple of days before the battle, but they don't get word of that just yet, but they're not surprised. So I portray a soldier, somebody who would have been active on April 19th. Actually, these men had been active for 2 years before the war. They didn't just come together and say, okay, what do we do? In many cases, up until Lexington and Concord, your rank and file America had probably more battle experience than the British soldiers did. Well, the reason these men fought is because they were fighting for their liberties, the same fight they've had in England for centuries. That was another chapter in the long line of English civil wars. What made this difference was there was no redress. There was no way we would be able to sort of, even in esoteric terms, capture a parliament or capture a court. The king and his ministry had everything. That's what led to independence. So that's what drove these men. They had a very firm belief in God, very, very firm. And that's not unusual in an English culture either. And that is why they came together the way they did. That's why they put up with the privations. That's why they left their farms, their businesses behind to do what they did. And that's why they were so determined to do what they did.
This is the Lexington Minutemen Company from Lexington, Mass. Everyone is assigned a character. I am Daniel Harrington, who was the clerk of the company in April 1775 when the first encounter occurred. Today, the Lexington Minutemen Company reenactors are portraying a company from Andover, Captain Benjamin Ames' company. They fought on Bunker Hill, and they in fact took the heaviest casualties of any company that day on the battlefield. When that tinderbox exploded, they stood up for each other, and they fought. So these were common, everyday people, all walks of life, who defended themselves, their towns, their families, all in the name of, liberty that we now enjoy.
For this weekend, I'm portraying a sergeant, so the stash here represents NCOs and sergeants, so that's why I have this on. Normally I would have my coat. My coat would be a little bit different of a color than the private's coat, just to signify sergeant versus private. So I'm here to make sure my men are in line and following what's needed. The 38th Regiment of Foot was raised in England in 1774. We came over to the colonies, and we're in most of the major battles of the American Revolution, and we left in 1783, headed back to England, so we weren't part of the Southern Campaign down in Yorktown.
He's the commander, and I am actually line infantry, so I listen to his orders. I'm the standard private of the British Army. So basically, I'm in line, listening to the orders. I have the resolve, the strength in numbers, shoulder to shoulder, line to line, that kind of thing. And I'm just there to bolster numbers. The gun I have here is the short land pattern brown Bess. It's effective really up to 50 yards, so the whole mindset of the time period was to get up and close and volume of fire over accuracy to a point where it really shaped the battlefield in the British's favor because they had the resources from the outer colonies and a lot of the manpower and that kind of thing.
Front rank. Rest your firelocks. Front rank. Shoulder firelocks. Search arm. Pass the boat. Draw your rammers. Turn your rammers. Shoulder your firelocks. Shoulder firelocks. Front rank. 2 paces to the rear. March.
Hey, if you listen carefully, you can hear the sound of drums coming from down around the encampment. That can mean only one thing. That can only mean that the British troops are back. They're going to try again because really they have no choice. They have to drive the Americans off this hill. If they give them another overnight to keep working on this redoubt, it'll be way too strong to assault it. It's now or never, folks. And here comes the British column. It looks like it's been reinforced since the first assaults. General Howe is now assisted by General Clinton. They've added 2, 3, 4 more British regiments to the force. Fresh troops brought over from Boston. Here come the light infantry running up on the flank of the British, forming at the trot. Now they slow to match the speed. It's very important to keep these troops in good close order. You can't let a small part of your force get out ahead of the rest. You can't lose cohesion. There, see how quickly they change formation. Again, the British troops are all professional troops. These soldiers have been in the army for 5, 6, 10, 12 years. They know how to do these things quickly and effectively. So they formed a line of battle, but if you look closely, it looks a little different than it did before. They're at an open order. The troops are more spread out. They have a wider frontage and there's space between them now. Why are they doing this? Well, it's going to help them go up this hill with the obstructions. If you're shoulder to shoulder with the next man, you can't maneuver around anything. But it's not an open, clear field, so they need more maneuvering room. They've formed an open order now. Maybe this will be a more effective formation for this kind of assault. Will they be able to move fast enough to get up the hill? Well, they start at a slower pace. They have to maintain their line. They don't want some of the soldiers getting ahead of the others. They don't want any falling behind. They start at a slow pace to be sure that everybody has that order. See the way they can get around the obstructions now? They're in open order. It's more effective for the terrain they have to cover. It looks like they're not going to try another flanking assault like this time. This must not be a feint. This must be the real thing this time. The Americans have opened up with their artillery. They have just a few artillery pieces in the middle of their line. It appears they still have ammunition. Here too, the British open order is an effective way to avoid casualties from those cannons. Fewer men. The Americans have opened fire at much longer range this time. That might be intimidating, but it's not good if you're low on ammunition. That fire won't be effective from that distance. And the British are taking advantage now of some of these obstructions in their field. They're using them as covered positions. You can see the American troops, they're not as disciplined. Rather than volley fire, you're starting to get a lot of individual fire now. The men are enthusiastic, but they're not professional soldiers. They're a little harder to control. They're keeping up a random but hot fire now. It may be intimidating, but how's their ammunition supply up on that hill? The British have had time to rearm. The Americans didn't have that advantage. You can hear the American officer yelling, "Hold your fire, hold your fire." They know that ammunition could be running low. But it's hard to control these men. They're brimming with enthusiasm. They did so well earlier in the day. They want to do that again. The officers can keep them from keeping up this ineffective fire from a long range. And the British seem to be onto them. They've held their place. They're keeping a position at a distance. Let the Americans keep throwing away ammunition. That could actually work in their favor. The American troops have seen that the British are preparing to fire a devastating volley, and some of them are kneeling down now behind the redoubt. Wise move. And the light infantry are charging again. They're going to try to get up that flank against the rail fence one more time. I think the Americans are surprised at this too. It looks like the Americans are having trouble keeping a steady fire. The light infantry are going down, but are they taking casualties or are they just lying down? There it is, there's the first of the British volleys. It's a long range, but that's a pretty intimidating amount of gunfire. Is it going to rattle the American troops? Will they start to waver? It looks like the light infantry are pinned down now. A lot of men went down, but I don't think they were hit by the gunfire. I think they're using the slope of the hill as protection. They're so low down that the Americans can't get good shots at them anymore. They're actually using the slope of the hill to their advantage. Here comes the rest of the British battle line. That's a lot of redcoats. They're maintaining their discipline even in the face of this American fire. Notice that the Americans aren't firing volleys, they're just firing lots of scattered shots. That doesn't look like good discipline. The light infantry is falling back now.
Keep
They're doing a great job keeping line in spite of those obstructions slowing them down. The American musketry is starting to show some effect. There's a few casualties, but it's still a bit of a distance. And devastating volleys because the Americans are firing individually. Now the British are charging their bayonets and they're up the hill. They're getting closer, but they're taking casualties. Some of the Americans are starting to break. They're starting to fall back from the redoubt. Some of the British are falling back as well. There's confusion on both sides. The officers are trying to control the men. The British are falling back. But the Americans have abandoned part of their earthworks. Some of the British troops got almost up to the fort that time. They couldn't quite get enough troops up there quickly enough, and now they're tumbling back down the hill. It looks like they're going to use the slopes of the hill to help them get cover. You can see for safety reasons, an American officer had to go out and actually move some of the casualties out of the way because you can't be lying down in front of a cannon. Again, safety is paramount. This is a reenactment. It's very important that we don't have any real casualties. So they make some adjustments on the field. The British have fallen back again. But they know they can't just leave the Americans in that fortification. It's too dangerous for the city of Boston. They're into the redoubt now. They've gone through, they're overwhelming the redoubt, and the Americans want no part of the British bayonets. They're fleeing. The Americans are running away now. The British have done it. They've gotten over, they've got the fort, and they have still more troops. The Americans are trying to flee the peninsula desperately. From this vantage point, we can't even see any more American troops. It's nothing but redcoats in the redoubt now. The British officers are trying to get control of the men again. They've overwhelmed the American position. It worked. The column attack worked this time. And the Americans ran clean out of ammunition this time. There's just a few Americans still struggling to give a little bit of resistance, but there's far too many British troops now. There we go, reform the company. The British officers are getting control of their troops now after they stormed this position. They've driven the Americans off the Charlestown Peninsula. They've successfully taken the American redoubt and moved on to capture Bunker Hill, which was their objective all along. Oh, there's still some more resistance. But the British are maintaining good order and formations and driving the Americans away. The Americans are mostly panicked. Some of them are able to conduct an orderly retreat, trying to save as many lives as they can. But they don't stand a chance now. There's just not enough of them, and the British are able to push them and push them away. British colors, British flag now flying in the redoubt. The Americans don't have any more fortified positions. They don't have any more reinforcements to draw on. And listen to that drum beat. 2 short rolls and 3 flams. Thump, thump, thump. That's a ceasefire. The battle's over, folks.